it uploads the file.
Okay.
It's my first time using it. It's better quality than recording on Zoom, apparently. So we'll see how we go. Anyway, yeah, it looks like we're good to go, mate. So welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast, ladies and gentlemen. This evening, I'm very, very honored to be joined by Andrew Payne. He's a TEDx featured leadership speaker and coach. He's on a mission to prevent burnout and develop decisive and productive leaders. He's also a history geek. He's a football fanatic and a father of four, straight out of Birmingham, about an hour away from where I'm from. Andrew, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's fun, and we're doing this one in the evening, and my assistant Christian, who booked you on the show, said, I've got a guest for you, but you've got to stay up and do an evening show with him. Is that okay? We checked out his profile, and I said, for that man, I would go to the ends of the earth for that man. Oh, what a pleasure.
Bless you. Bless you. No, it's early morning here. I've done the school run, so hopefully we're in a good place.
Yeah, and we had a chat before. Andrew's got his 4-year-old off sick, and I've got my toddlers having dinner on the other side of the door. So who knows what this podcast is going to turn out.
Henry you may well get gate crashed. I've been gate crashed before by my kids doing webinars and the like, so it happens.
I find these days, man, with online business, everyone working from home, if people can't deal with the fact that you've got a family in the house, then, fuck them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was doing a leadership webinar, and one of the gate crashes, this was during lockdown. There was 400 people, and I was coming to sort of the pivotal point of the webinar. And my 4-year-old was supposed to be being looked after by my teenage daughter, but he slipped through the net, and he came in and announced to 400 people that he needed a poo. And it just kind of killed the moment. But then it kind of made the moment. There's a lot of laughter. And I was like, what happened to your sister? And then all these people are watching me kind of like sort of panic. It's like, what the hell do I do now?
Wow, the problems and opportunities that these lockdowns brought along, mate. How funny. Well, this show today, right, it's going to be about your coaching business and your leadership programs.
Sure.
But I can't gloss over your TEDx talk, and I'm going to have a little bit of a long intro for this question, so excuse me. But
sure,
your TEDx talk about the domestic violence that you suffered in your first marriage towards you. It's a super, super engaging and emotional talk, mate. I really enjoyed it, and it was kind of made me cringe a little bit, especially the bit with the handsaw. Really full-on stuff, man. But I believe that there's something that you brought up that we can tie together really well into business that some people might relate to, and that is guilt, because you often felt like abuse coming towards you was your fault. I think that's a pretty common thing for abuse survivors. And in business, personally, I felt a lot of guilt over the years for a few reasons. So whether it was the guilt for not living up to the expectations I believe my parents had of me, or the guilt of putting my fiance through financial stress when it wasn't working, or the guilt of my clients not getting the results they want to. So my question for you, Andrew, is why do you believe guilt comes up so much, especially in the coaching space? And as a man who's been through so much, how do you stop yourself, with that self-punishment and just get back up and keep going?
Wow, what a question. Well, I mean, I think in today, I mean, this wasn't the case for me during my marriage, because during the violence that I suffered in my marriage, that was all pre-social media. But I do think the guilt thing is exacerbated. I think it's quite natural. I think I still feel guilty today about the thing, when I'm being a dad, I'm twitched that I'm not getting on with my work. And then when I'm trying to get on with my work, I feel guilty that I'm not being a dad. And I think that's quite normal. So part of it is just understanding, listen, we're all in the same boat. Everyone feels guilty. Super successful people that on their webinars don't believe it. They're still struggling with guilt, disappointment, failed dreams that they couldn't quite put. It's just part of being human. But I do think it's exacerbated by social media. You go on LinkedIn. What do you see on LinkedIn? You see people posting about their latest award, their latest promotion. Their team is abseiling down the Shard in London for their donkey sanctuary. Everyone's having this extraordinary life, and you're sat failing at home, cracking out your business calls, and nothing's coming off. And so I don't think that helps. No one posts on LinkedIn about the disciplinary that they just got. They just got a verbal warning. No one says, I've got a verbal warning today. To be fair, it is a fair call. I've been off the board. No one says that. And yet in the UK last year, there was something like 1.7 million disciplinary cases. So you're out there somewhere. You're just not posting it on LinkedIn. And so, I mean, LinkedIn's just one example, Instagram, they're all the same. And so I think that's made the situation worse. We expose ourselves to everybody else's good bits on a daily basis, and then we're surprised that we feel so inadequate. So for me, I do remind myself, we have some gutter press here in the UK, the worst newspapers you could possibly imagine, The Sun, the Daily Mirror, they're terrible things. Yeah, everybody buys them. But you know when you buy this garbage that it is nonsense, that is divisive rubbish. And yet, why do we trust what's on social media as being any more truthful? It is also divisive, opinionated rubbish. And so that has helped me. And I think, like I say, I just remind myself, listen, I am going to feel guilty. I can only do so much. I know this sounds terribly boring. I do plan my day. So I like have 10 minutes kind of thinking time. And so I do try and sort of plan in a bit of time with the kid. If the kids are at home, this is the time where they're going to do stuff. And I don't beat myself up with it. It's not a concrete block. It's like a flexible guide that I give myself. And at the end of the day, you can only get done what you can get done. And if you're feeling very stressed all the time, then something needs to change. You need to try and find a way to get a grip on it.
100%. Yeah, that's stuff I want to get into actually with you, because that's what your hallmark topic is. It's helping people to get through that stress and avoid burnout, which is massive. I didn't even think of social media as a guilt factor, but of course it is. The comparison factor is a big thing we talk about. My last guest, Julie Greenham, last week, she was a coach for introverts, and she was an introvert herself, and she really struggled with social media because posting content for her was such a massive thing as an introvert that as soon as it was out there, all she could think about were the imperfections and the problems with it, because everyone else's was so perfect. But we all know it's nonsense.
Yeah, I'd also, and I suppose this helps as well. So I have ways of dealing, for example, with negative feedback. You have to as a speaker, because you're going to get it. I was speaking to a really good speaker, a motivational speaker, really good guy, Dave Heiner. He won't mind me saying, and he was saying he once delivered to this group of CEOs. There's a network of CEOs throughout the UK, and he was delivering to 2 separate groups in the same week. And you get scored, very seriously scored, and you don't get the score until a bit later on. In his first talk at the beginning of the week, he got perfect 10s. You never get that. Several days later, same talk, same energy. He was described collectively as the worst speaker the group had ever seen. And so, one of the things I encourage myself with is you're not the right fit. You might receive negative feedback. The stuff you produce may not land in the way that you want it to, but you are not the right fit for everything. And we want diversity. We know from diversity that there's a richness, and that's where the magic happens. But with diversity comes diverse opinions. You look at any book that's won a Booker Prize or it's won a Nobel Prize, it will still have its 1-star reviews on Amazon of people that bought this extraordinary piece of work, read it and thought it was rubbish. And so I do remind myself of that in terms of guilt. If something's not gone well, I'm not the right fit for everything. And the other thing in what you're saying with content is I don't believe perfection exists, so I don't try and create it. I do believe outstanding exists, but you can't just create outstanding in your own home and space. In my opinion, you can only create good. That's as good as you'll get. And you only elevate good to outstanding when you churn your stuff out there and get feedback, and you test it and you redo it and you redo it again and again, and you churn it out again, get a bit more feedback. And then eventually it becomes outstanding. I have a decision-making session, the talk and a workshop now, which I believe is outstanding. But when I first rolled it out 18 months ago, it was good. It was okay. There was mostly good feedback, but there was flaws. There's always going to be. And so I think it's having that courage to say, I know it's only going to be good for now, but with churning it out, taking on the feedback, reflecting on it, I can elevate it over time to outstanding. And that's the other thing with social media. I think we expect instant results, but we have like this immediacy culture, Amazon next day delivery, back-to-back TV. Back in the day, when I was watching my TV program, I had to wait a week till the next episode. I couldn't just go and watch it. And if I was late, I've missed it. Whereas I think today we have these immediate expectations. It doesn't help with guilt. You want to create something good, it's going to take time. You're going to need to roll it out and be brave and then take the feedback. So I sometimes roll stuff out that I know is not absolute. I know that it's only good. So therefore, I'm going to get some feedback that's going to be constructive, and I'm going to take it on the chin, because with that, I can then elevate to outstanding. That's how I look at it, at least.
Well, how else would you know? How else would you know? Like, I had to re-download Facebook on my phone a couple of days ago, and it has 2-star reviews. Like that, in on average, it's got a 2-star review on the Apple Store, and that's the product that everyone. That's got like 3 billion customers, and I thought that was
Yeah.
hilarious. And because my whole business runs on Facebook, and it's obviously a fantastic product.
Yeah.
Anything aside, opinion, it's obviously a good, an incredible piece of software, and it's got 2-star reviews on average on Apple Store. So you're not a good fit for everything. I think it's a really, really good message, especially for the coaches out there listening who are, mostly beginner coaches. And we are, just like you as a speaker, we are the product, really. So someone not liking our business or our content, we can take it as a direct, it's their opinion of us as a person. We can take that directly and personally, which is really, really rough. So you touched on something before that was a really kind of elegant segue into this next part, where I want to talk about your productivity. It's the school holidays here in Australia. A lot of my friends have their kids at home, while they're trying to run their businesses. You're a father of 4. Henry's sick in the background. My wife was out today, and I was at home with my twin toddlers to look after. And I know for a fact that when that happens, and I try and do both jobs at once, run my business and my family, I'm shit at both of them. Rather than just trying to, be present. But today I kind of I couldn't manage it, and I felt awful all day. So how do you manage giving your full energy to different areas of your life, your job, your business, your 4 kids, your sport, your community? How do you manage all of that, Andrew Payne, without burning yourself out?
Well, anybody that says they've got a technique or a fail-proof strategy, you're going to reclaim 2 days a week that you never had before, man. It's just nonsense. And there is no easy answer. I have advantages that other people don't have. I have my parents in good health 5 miles away. I have 3 boys. So actually it helps if they're all off. Well, no, it doesn't actually, because then they'll argue all day long and then the house will look like a bomb's hit it. But, I do have boys that can generally entertain each other quite well. Not everybody does. A friend of mine has got a daughter who's autistic, and she has that daughter is an only child. So if she's at home, there's not a chance of her getting any work done. So how do you, there's no foolproof way of doing it. I do try to work on the basis, like today, I'm doing this podcast with you. Henry is having his screen time for our podcast because that's what I've got scheduled in. I've got another talk this afternoon. He's going over to his grandparents. The rest of the day, I'm on dad duty, and that's what I'm doing. He's off sick. I'm going to give him my time. I'll read him stories. So some of it is I don't try and do both things at a time. Some of it is saying, okay, well, I've got him at home. I may be able to get some things done, but that's not my priority. It's only a bonus. And if I don't, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. Some of it is like if you've got a day where actually the kids aren't at home, it's a quiet day. Often those are the days where we should be super productive. Because we have all this time, we find ourselves wandering around on the internet, checking out the 10 best swimming pools in the world, even though, well, why? And we get to number 2 and we're so excited. I wonder what number 1 looks like on this day that you were going to get so much done. So some of it is on my days where I have got a clear day. Those are especially the days where I need a guide. And I kind of block out I have an A4 hardback diary. Some people use an online tool like Rescue Time, which is a really cool tool if you're into that. I prefer to come off my screen when I plan my time. And I have like a A4 hardback diary. I block out sort of an hour through the day. I don't go for the Pomodoro technique where it's 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. That doesn't work for me at all. And then I just think through, what do I want to get done? What are my game-changing tasks? I need to schedule a bit of time in for them. I schedule my social media time into that. And so my phone at any given time, data, mobile, Wi-Fi off, but I have times in the day where I turn it on. My phone goes crazy and vibrates and goes pings and all of that. I catch up with emails, and then all my browsers are off, phones, and I'll carry on with whatever it is I'm doing. So some of it is on those quiet days. I am very, very productive. I break up my spaces. there's a little space that I go to. I actually blew their system last week. I plugged my laptop in and blew their electrics. But I do use another space where businesses come together in a bit of a hub, just to break it up a bit. And because I know I'm super productive on those days that are quiet, it does mean when I have got an interrupted day, like today with Henry at home, I don't beat myself up as much as I might otherwise do. Some of it is having that self-talk, those positive reinforcing messages, reminding yourselves of truths that Rome wasn't built in a day, and this sense that we should build it in today. That's just a modern message that is nonsense. Some of it is also I reduce my standards on trivial things. I increase my standards on the important things. So trivial is the state of the house. Yes, that really gets me down. If the boys are at home and there's Lego everywhere, it looks like a bomb's hit it. But I have to talk myself mentally. I haven't got, my focus is the kids or it's doing my work. It is not house clearing. That could be done at another time. So even little things like that, just trying to keep self-talking in that positive way, not telling myself that I love myself. That just doesn't work for me, but reminding myself of true things that actually in this moment right now, there are trivial things that I could focus on, and that's just going to make my situation worse. So what's truly important? It's that kind of stuff that helps me.
That's some of the best advice I've actually heard in on this show, because a lot of people have the secrets. The trivial thing is huge. What you just said. I think you're energetic and handsome enough that I can ask you how old you are, Andrew.
Oh, you're such a gentleman. I'm 48.
48. Okay.
I'm 48. So but what it is, you can't see properly because you can see me on camera, obviously. But the way the light is, you can't see all the grey hair. I have to say, I'm scrubbing up quite well the way the light is. But another angle, and you'll see that I'm very grey.
It all goes downhill.
Yeah.
Lighting's fantastic. Yeah, well, I'm 31, and I feel like 7 years ago when I first started business, I had people telling me you don't need to be working all the time, you don't need to be on your phone all the time, you got to be present. And I was like, I'm working. I do need to be on my phone all the time. Now I'm 31. I got a family. I realized that they were right, and I do believe that because Rome wasn't built in a day, like you said. I'm really, if I get this job done today or tomorrow or even mid next week, it's not going to make a huge difference to my life or my client's life. 17 years down the track for you, do you believe that what you've just said, your advice on not concerning yourself too much with trivial things, on being productive, and being relatively not relaxed, but just taking ownership of the fact that you're not going to get everything done perfectly all the time? Do you think there's a certain level of maturity you need to get to that stage? Because I feel like a lot of 22-year-old coaches starting their business who all they want to do is get their first $10,000 a month, they wouldn't resonate with what you've said at all.
No. Well, listen, I mean, I have a speaking business. It's doing pretty well. I'm not making millions, but I'm doing okay. It's great. I've got an income from speaking and training, which is what I love to do. I don't do a lot of one-to-one coaching. I think there's a lot of better one-to-one coaches out there than me. My skill really is the speaking and working with groups. And it's taken me a while to work that out, but it's taken me 10 years to build my business. I've dabbled around with other people's secrets and high ticket programs. And personally, I think it's generally nonsense. It will take time. I think the other thing with perhaps, is it maturity or is it acceptance? Which I think we talk about what builds in resilience and grit, and I do think it's where passion meets perseverance. And that's true, but acceptance of pain, of time. So one thing that I see, a big mistake I see with people that I work with, not just in the coaching industry, but among my peers, is they want to be successful. So they think, I'll write a book, I'll do a podcast. Podcasts are a huge way of getting your message out there. So that's fine. I don't want to belittle that at all. But what they don't want to do is the really boring stuff like cracking out the calls. Oh, I'll subcontract that out to Thingamajig. Yeah, but is Thingamajig the best person to be cracking out those calls initially? So how do I get my business? It is mostly through cold outreach. And I have days set aside. It's why I plan my time. So there's an hour or two of cold outreach every day because I don't like doing it. Nobody does. It's not nice getting on the phone to somebody that doesn't want to talk to you and just trying to warm them up gently. It's not nice having all your sort of your messaging and keeping your filing up to date. So, well, actually, I'll try such and such one last time. How many times have I tried them? On what dates? What did I say to them? That stuff's boring. No one wants to do it. But actually, it is crucial. For all the LinkedIn posts I've done where I've got huge levels of engagement, I don't get bookings out of it. There's an awareness. People that might book me may go and see what I'm saying on LinkedIn, but I'm not going to get booked because of what I'm saying on LinkedIn. It comes through that direct outreach, which nobody wants to do. Oh, I'll spend a fortune on Facebook. Get them to do it because it's easy. But actually, you have to do it yourself, in my opinion, in the coaching industry at least, and get onto that phone and start making that outreach. You need an offer first. You need some stuff that people actually want. And then you have to get yourself out there. And so I think some of it is accepting that it won't be what you want, won't be created immediately. Some of it is accepting it is hard graft on an ongoing basis. So set yourself up for a marathon. Nobody ever completed a marathon by sprinting the first mile. You'd be exhausted. You run a marathon by training, by understanding it's going to be a long haul, and then you start doing it step by step. You try and enjoy the journey a bit. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, just enjoy the process. Some of the process won't be enjoyable. It'll be boring. And that's reality. But if you want to have a coaching business, for example, there may be people with other businesses, whatever your business is, you have to accept there'll be some boring graft on a long-term basis.
Yeah, love that. I'm 7 years into coaching, and the coaching space. I'm a marketer for coaches now, but the cold calling thing, reaching cold outreach or quote warm outreach from a quote lead who's downloaded your ebook, that kind of thing. That is not a warm lead. That's terrifying stuff. But I think it's really important to get that stuff out of the way and be able to do it. Now I have a small team of 6 people who work with me, and I have a lady who does calls for me. However, if I needed to, I'm not scared to do it. Maybe I'm scared for the first one of the day, but by the time you've made that first dial, it gets easier every time, right?
I think for me, I don't ever have a day of cold outreach. It'd be too soul destroying. So I just break it like an hour or 2 a day. Obviously, if I'm delivering for a day, I can't cold outreach, and that's okay. I do have an assistant that supports me in the cold outreach. My view is that I need to do some of it myself. That kind of feels, I hate the word authentic because it's just overused now, but it feels authentic for me to ring up sort of a learning and development director, whoever it may be, and say, hey, listen, if I can catch them, my name is X, this is what I do. Just wondered whether that might resonate. No problem. If not, I've got a very kind of relaxed, I don't go in promising the world, because the people I'm reaching out to have been there, seen there and done it. If you go in promising the world, you won't get anywhere.
Managing expectations is massive. All right. That's another thing I've learned with my experience over the years. But that's actually, your segues today are just, you're leading me into my next question with everything you say, which is amazing.
Oh.
You're the perfect guest, Andrew Payne.
Oh, bless you. You're too kind.
So delegation is an interesting thing, because I'm actually a huge endorser of delegation.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a coaching business, any kind of solopreneurial online business, just because we have this gig economy now where, you can hop onto any number of websites and hire a freelancer who is going to be infinitely more talented than you are at a certain thing and get it done in 4 times the time, and the quality will be better, and you might have to pay for it. Not delegating the big things, but the little things where you can. And I think it's a scary thing for a lot of new business owners and coaches, solopreneurs, to delegate for the first time, both financially and to give up control for the first time. Why is it so important to get used to delegation in the early stages or mid stages of a business?
Because if you get into a habit of just keeping everything and trying to do everything, then as your business grows, you will burn out. Or if you're trying to bring people into your business and you're not truly sharing the cool stuff, the responsibility, then people are going to become just annoyed and bored and resentful. And I see this with businesses where leaders, they don't trust their team enough. Maybe they got burnt once before when they delegated, but the way they delegated, they probably barked out some orders. They probably fired off a quick email and expected the other person would know exactly the result that they were looking to achieve. And so the delegation process needs to be a conversation. It needs to be a thought out process. I actually have a session I do on how to delegate, and is literally thinking through and exploring how to deliver compelling handovers. I think, yeah, it's a really important habit to quickly get into. The one thing I would say, if it's one thing to delegate to someone within your business, where the kind of the how it's going to get done is more of a two-way flowing conversation. Obviously, if you're hiring in a skill, they have the talent and skill. They know how they're going to do it. But where I have been burnt before, and I have a golden rule now, whenever I bring in a skill, whatever that is, where not only do I check out reviews, I actually go and check out the reviews and speak to the person. That they've said this person has said something. I won't hire anyone until I've spoken to some people that have used them quite previously, and that's kind of like my golden rule. I once was tempted. There was a speaker bureau, and they talked such a good talk, and I was a little bit like, oh well, maybe I'll have a look at them. And so I looked at all the speakers that they had on there, and there were all these incredible reviews from bookers and speakers. But when I did a sample selection of 5 of the speakers, I actually went and contacted them directly. Not one of them had one piece of business from this bureau who were charging you to be on their bureau. That's a bit of a red flag anyway. And so, whatever the service, do yourself a favor, go and speak to some people that have used that service. Never, ever get sidetracked. Never, ever get, what's the word? Just seduced by promises without checking reviews. But of course, when you delegate within your business, that's a different. There's two different. Then there are various forms of delegation, aren't there?
Yeah, no, that's a good distinction. I've never really thought about those two distinctions too much. But I suppose, yeah, I would be a lot more patient to spend hours with someone on my books teaching them a skill than I would with a freelancer coming in just to do me a brand book or something,
Yeah.
That's because I don't expect them to know it, and I want them long term. I want them to know these skills the way I would do it, so that then they can improve upon that and do it when I have an unexpected day like today. I was actually very lucky. A lot of stuff I've invested a lot of time in the last few weeks that I didn't really have to train up a new lady on my team, and today she was just knocking stuff out without me being there, and it was such a gratifying thing to do. So I was very, very happy. Very happy to see that, mate.
And the more time you put into that handover, obviously it feels painful at first because you just want to dump this job essentially. But if you can look at delegation as also developing another person so that they can step up to the plate more easily, more quickly, more often, and you put that time in initially, then you will get your rewards. I once worked with a team leader, and she was doing everything herself. So she was kind of burning out. And part of her issue was she could delegate, but she hadn't gone so well before, but she just emailed instructions. So when we moved her away and just moved it more into this two-way conversation, encouraged her to take more time, so she started to get better results. But initially, the setup time, the handover, was obviously going to take longer, but then she reaped the rewards later down the line. And that's the way to look at delegation, is more of a long-term development process rather than just dumping the task as quickly as you can.
Yeah, I was an apprentice chef. That's a 3-year apprenticeship. I think most apprentices, the first year and a half, you're way more of a hindrance than a help. But by year 3, you're basically fully qualified on an apprentice wage, and that's a helpful thing to have in the kitchen. Same as
that's so true. I have my the way I look at when you develop a skill, there's 3 learning phases that you go through. And again, we need to remember this today. I mean, you can't be rushed through. Everybody, Professor Sarah Gilbert, who was the leading driver behind the COVID vaccine, she's a clever woman, obviously. She has to go through these. There's no escaping this because you're a human. So you have your moron stage where you're a total moron in what you're doing. It's humiliating. It's embarrassing. Anybody else doing that same thing is better than you. And you just have to grit your teeth and get through it until you get to the mediocre stage, the second stage. You're nothing special. You can't be showing off, but you're no longer a moron. It feels nice. You know you've progressed, and you know there's a lot further to go. Some people leave it there because they've invested so much to get from moron to mediocre, and that's okay. And some people say, actually, I'm going to sacrifice some more and get to the third stage, which is the mastery stage, where you're an absolute rock star at whatever it is you're doing. It's amazing, but it's a big journey, and no one gets to mastery phase without going through moron and mediocre. You have to go through each stage. And so again, when thinking about guilt, when thinking about, my business isn't going as well as I want, it's not going as quickly as I want, I remind myself of those phases and just say, look, it's just part of it. You grit your teeth, you keep trudging forward.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. And I think, I've definitely been a moron many, many times, and I'm still a moron 7 years into business in certain things that I pick up.
Yeah.
I've got a new spreadsheet guy, because before I had a team, I didn't really need spreadsheets because everything was up in my head. But then when I got a team, I was like, okay, I've got to, have things laid out for them. And I've got no idea how to use a spreadsheet. I've never done it. So I'm a complete, as much as I run an online business, I'm a computer moron. And luckily I've hired a master, who I believe is a master in my eyes. So they're out there. That's a really, really funny distinction. Moron, mediocre, and master. Where are you in your speaking business right now? You a master yet?
I think I'm moving towards that way. Yeah. And I'm realistic enough to know that I am a master at some things. I still think in my speaking business, so it's really been the last 3 or 4 years I've evolved from sort of one-to-one coach, group training, and there's actually I'm better with groups, and then the speaking has really evolved over the last 3 or 4 years. I know in my head where I'll get to when I could truly say, I am mastered it. I think there's still areas that I'm developing at the moment. So I would like to think I'm in the sort of the final stages of mediocre and ready to step up into being masterful.
That's great. That's fantastic. That's mediocre is a tough pill to swallow. The word mediocre, I think pretty good is what I'd rather call myself. But I'll go with mediocre.
But the thing is, it's more. It helps me if it all starts with the same letter. So mediocre is okay for me. Actually, I'm at peace with mediocre because I know there's things that I am masterful at. So I don't mind being mediocre at a few things. I'm quite happy. I own that now. And again, I think that's the other thing. You can't be brilliant at everything. And I'm really at peace with being a moron in some things. In choosing to not be a moron, actually, I'm not going to learn that because I can't be bothered. I'm okay with being mediocre. There's some things where if I tried to be a master, it wouldn't matter how much time I put into it. I'm not going to be. I'm not that. I'm like in terms of art and craft, DIY. I could spend weeks developing my skills, and I'm never ever going to get beyond mediocre. So some of it is also having the discernment to understand, well, what skills will I try and fine tune so I can get to that mastery phase, and what skills will I leave alone? And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you mentioned DIY in your TEDx talk, and I had to resonate. And I think a huge amount of men in the room would hate to admit that they resonate with not be able to put up a shelf very well. I used to feel quite insecure when I go to a mechanic and they would treat me like an idiot because I didn't know how to fix a car. And I'll be like, hang on, that's why I'm here, because you're good at fixing cars and I'm not. If I was good at fixing cars, you wouldn't have a business. So I got better at that over time and realized that I'm good at, at that time, I could make a better hollandaise than you. And now I could do a lot more things on the internet than you. But I'm really glad that you're here, because you've got to have masters and morons and everything, right?
Absolutely. The next time a mechanic makes you feel stupid, you can say, listen, it's because of idiots like me that you get to eat.
Yeah, well, they won't anymore. But I think the next thing, as I've become a dad of twin girls, and it's just myself and my wife and my 2 daughters in the house, something is triggered some hyper masculine side of me that wants to become this warrior. And so I keep looking into things like, what would I do if we had to hunt for, you know, what would I do if we couldn't eat? And so I've actually been exploring a ethical bow hunting course here in Sydney.
Oh wow,
Which
interesting.
is, well, just because, and it's completely out of a little bit of insecurity, and knowing that because I focus my life on, you know, two things: internet business and the restaurant world. I've got a lot of things where I'm a moron at it. So I'd like to just get to mediocre at a bunch of dad skills now, just so I can,
good for
just
you.
so I can get by, you know, because I don't want to rely on Amazon for everything, you know.
Yeah.
Too easy.
Yeah.
Too easy to do, as you mentioned. Well, mate,
yeah,
Andrew, look, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I think we've gotten away with it, you know, up until now, with Henry watching Thomas the Tank Engine. My girls are watching something similar in the other room. I'm not a fan of the new animations on these shows, by the way. Have you noticed that everything's CGI now? They used to be plasticine, and now all, Bob the Builder's all computer animated now, and Fireman Sam, and all these shows, they're not what I grew up with.
No, I don't have an opinion on that particularly. That's one of the things that I would class as very, yeah. I mean, my 4-year-old often gets dragged into the older TV programs because he's got older brothers, so he's often watching Johnny English and things like that, which obviously over his head, but that's what they're watching. So
yeah, good stuff, man. Well, there's some garbage out there, so we try and put them towards the classics, but there but, you know, I'm becoming a grumpy old man, you know, shaking my fist. This isn't what I grew up with. Damn kids. Mate, Andrew Payne, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. I think you've given me, like, honestly, some really, really good advice that I can take away in terms of the delegation, the burnout, the guilt as trying to manage a family and a business and a team. Not concerning myself with the trivial stuff, because I did clean the house today. When I really could have gotten some other shit done. So really relatable advice from you today. And I think anyone who comes to see you, sits down in the room with you, is very lucky for having been there. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh, bless you. No, it's been a pleasure. All the best to you.
Excellent. Well, anyone who's listening or watching, this has been our first recording with Riverside.fm. So hopefully this has been a good quality podcast, if in, you know, delivery rather than just Andrew's amazing content. But I'll be back next week with another episode of Coaches to the Moon. Before I go, Andrew, one more huge thank you to you, mate. Enjoy your day.
No, bless you. All the best to you. Thank you.
Bless you. And everyone listening, thank you so much. Much love and peace out.